What's going on, Friday fans? Thank you all for joining me as always. And after our vacation in Manhattan, let me welcome you all to hell. What? Isn't this the one with Freddy? Shit! Released in 1993, Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, is New Line Cinema's first attempt at Jason Voorhees. And how do they respond? Well, they give the keys to Adam Marcus, a 23-year-old who had directed nothing, absolutely nothing before this movie. Pretty bold move, but hey, maybe it'll pay off. Now, a lot of people consider Part 5 the black sheep of this franchise, because it didn't have Jason in it, aside from maybe a few small dream sequences. But to me, that honor should definitely go to Part 9 here, because even though Jason is in this one, for all of 10 minutes, this isn't a Friday the 13th movie. To be honest, I don't know what the fuck this is. Now, it does start like a Friday the 13th movie. You get a pretty girl at Camp Crystal Lake, and you get Jason coming to kill her. So far so good. But in this instance, it turns out it was all a setup, as this girl actually works for the FBI, and this was a trap to lure Jason so they could just absolutely unload on this dude like they just put in the weapons cheat for GTA 5. And after this moment, which was pretty much ripped directly from Halloween 4's ending, complete with a slow-motion Jason decapitation, we get our first of many what the fuck moments of this movie. Whoa, dude, eat your heart out as an expression. You're not supposed to take it literally. But yes, the coroner does in fact eat Jason's still beating heart, and I guess he's possessed by Jason? And at this point of the movie, I was just thinking, oh, I have a bad feeling about this. But this does lead into the first kill of the movie. Since Jason is still technically alive, I'm not going to count that. And this is, of course, where the coroner does his best Wolverine impression. And we get to see very early on that after 4 movies of disappointments from the MPAA censorship, this movie does not mess around with the gore. If there's one thing this movie absolutely nails, it's definitely the gore effects. But more on that later. We get a fun little cameo here from the man himself, Kane Hodder, and for everything he's brought to this series, you'd think they'd give him a better death.
Jason Voorhees, dead or deadly?
What is that? He deserved better. And speaking of weak deaths, we're introduced to the best part of this movie and one of the better characters of the entire franchise, Creighton Duke, a bounty hunter obsessed with killing Jason for good.
I'm going to say 2 words to you, Mr. Duke, and I want you to say the first thing that comes to your mind, okay?
Okay.
Jason Voorhees.
Well, that makes me think of a little girl in a pink dress, sticking a hot dog through a donut.
Now, I have no idea where this dude has been for the first 8 entries, but we definitely could have used some more Creighton. And for the second movie in a row, we get some fun diner moments, whereas Part 8 very briefly introduced us to Kane Hodder's eventual replacement. Yeah, that dude. Part 9 introduces us to Diana, Jason's half-sister that has never been brought up in 8 movies. And one of my biggest pet peeves this movie is absolutely guilty of, and that's when they try to force these family characters into an already long-running franchise. We also get to meet Steven, a badass in his own right, when he picks up these group of hitchhikers on their way to Camp Crystal Lake to celebrate Jason's death. And after he drops them off here, we get the best kill in this entry, and I would say one of the best in the franchise. I know Part 7's sleeping bag kill is considered iconic, and for good reason, but to me this is easily the best kill involving a tent. I'll take this over the sleeping bag kill all day. Now after another kill back at the diner, we get Jason's soul transfer number 2 in a scene that is just weird as hell and definitely has some 50 Shades of Grey homosexual undertones.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, of course not.
We're then introduced to Jessica and her baby, the last 2 members of the Voorhees bloodline. And unfortunately, yes, that will come up again. And I guess you would call Jessica Part 9's final girl, even though this is a pretty weak performance, at least in my eyes. And after speaking with Jessica on the phone, Diana is killed by Jason, despite Steven's best efforts to save her. Steven then proceeds to get himself thrown in jail because, well, he's the only one at the death scene, and in fairness, he looks guilty as hell. But lucky for Steven, one cell over is our bounty hunter friend. No, the other bounty hunter.
Son of a bitch. You remember me?
Yeah, him. And this is where we get an explanation of why this fucking movie exists. Apparently, Jason needs to possess a member of his family's bloodline to truly be reborn. A few scenes later, after Steven breaks out of prison, we get to see the Voorhees house. The Voorhees house? What the fuck is this? Why was none of this stuff brought up in 8 entries? But on a lighter note, we then get Jason's soul transfer number 3, and we get this deputy's body that just like melts into the floor, and this scene is absolutely amazing. Like, I swear, every time I'm ready to shut this movie off, they give us this amazing death sequence that makes me keep watching. Bastards. Newly possessed news anchor Jason, which I hear was Jason's fallback career if the whole serial killer thing didn't work out. He goes to the jail and kills everybody there trying to get Jessica, but again, Steven steps up. He then makes his way back to the diner to try and get Jessica.
Go to hell!
And this leads us to our final act of the movie, at the Voorhees house, where he's trying to get Jessica. And at this point, I literally laughed out loud. As if the bloodline in the Voorhees house wasn't ridiculous enough, we now get this magical dagger that can only be used by a Voorhees to kill a Voorhees, I guess.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
And after Steven saves Jessica, again, by cutting this possessed officer's neck with the machete, we get this grotesque and ridiculous worm creature that, I don't know, I guess is Jason? I don't fucking know anymore. And after it's explained that Jason doesn't need to possess an alive Voorhees family member, we see the worm go into Diana's corpse, and I'm not going to talk about the method of entry. You can watch for yourself. And as a result, Jason lives. Wait. And at this point, we get the only actual Jason kill of the movie, where he bear hugs Creighton.
Tonight, my friend, you will die!
Even in the uncut version, this is a pretty lame death. Both of these characters deserved a lot better here. Steven is then able to distract Jason long enough for Jessica to stab him in the heart with that fucking magical dagger I mentioned earlier. And after this really awkward scene, where it kind of looks like they're trying to beam Jason up into space, he's dragged to hell. Steven and Jessica walk off with the sun rising behind them in one of the most cliche shots I've ever seen. And of course, everybody who's watched this movie knows what happens next. That's right. An amazing moment to end this movie on that it definitely didn't deserve. Now, getting to the positives and negatives of Jason Goes to Hell, I actually do have one or two more positives here than I had to Jason Takes Manhattan, so that's something. Number one, I'm gonna bundle together. The kills and the gore in this movie is amazing. This is probably the greatest accumulation of kills and gore that we've seen since Part 4, the final chapter. So for that, I definitely have to give it major points. They absolutely nailed that aspect. And do yourselves a favor, if you haven't seen the uncut version of this movie, trust me, once you see it, you'll never go back. Number two, of course, Crate and Duke, but also Steven were a couple badass characters in this movie. I feel like Crate and Duke was a little underutilized, to be honest. He almost has like the Rob Dyer effect from Part 4, where I was hoping for a bigger moment between him and Jason that he just didn't get. Regardless, he was entertaining as hell. See what I did there? To watch. And Steven was a total badass. That dude saved the day so many times throughout this movie. And my third and final positive for this entry is, of course, that last scene. I can't explain the level of excitement of Freddy's glove coming up and taking Jason's mask to hell. And I was 3 years old when this movie came out. I can't even imagine what people did in theaters, if anybody actually went to see this movie in theaters. That ending set up an inevitable crossover that only took another 10 years to make. As far as negatives, you guys have probably noticed a trend that the further this series goes along, kind of the longer my negative list grows. And sticking with that tradition, I have 7 negatives about this movie, so I'll try to be quick. Now, 3 of them could probably be counted as one because they all involve Jason. Number 1 is just the look of Jason in this movie. I know some people really enjoyed it, but for me, it does not work. I hate how his head is bulging out of his mask. Looks like the straps are gonna snap at any given second. The second part is Jason is way too vocal in this movie. I know he's made grunts and noises before in some of the previous entries, but there are just way too many moments here, and some of them are just really dumb. It kind of puts me in mind of Michael Myers in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. You know, die, die! I just don't need that. And then my third gripe with Jason is we just don't get to see him enough. He's literally in this movie for about 10 minutes of the runtime. Even Jason Takes Manhattan got that part right. Up next, as I mentioned in my review, Jessica to me is the weakest final girl in the franchise. She just doesn't really bring much to the movie. I understand why her character was necessary for this story arc, being the Voorhees bloodline, but I would much rather watch Crate and Duke and Steven square off against Jason. My next huge complaint about this movie is just the entire storyline. I absolutely despised this family bloodline angle. I just hated the whole thing, to be honest. I did not enjoy the idea of Jason possessing other people. This is a Friday the 13th movie. Nobody wants to watch random people killing. People want to see Jason Voorhees killing people. That's just the way it's always been, the way it's always going to be. The family bloodline angle didn't work for me. I don't know why 9 movies in they tried to force in this family dynamic. And down that same line of thinking, the Voorhees house and the dagger, those are just so bad. It's almost cringeworthy. That dagger is the stupidest thing I've ever seen.
That's stupid. You're stupid. Stop being stupid.
And last, to sum this all up, the accumulation of these things that I didn't enjoy ultimately make this feel like it's not a Friday the 13th movie. I feel like this could have been a decent little B horror film with the gore effects, and maybe the story would have worked better for me if it wasn't in such a deep mythology and lore. But I can't watch this like it's a Friday the 13th movie. The same way I can't watch Season of the Witch, Halloween 3, and think of it as a Halloween movie. On its own, it's a decent little horror film. But in the grand scheme of Michael Myers, or in this case, Jason Voorhees, it just doesn't feel like it belongs in this franchise. But that's going to do it for Jason Goes to Hell. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. Just like Jason Takes Manhattan, I want to hear from the Jason Goes to Hell purists. I want to hear what you liked about this movie, and maybe we can have a fun little debate in the comments. If you like what I'm doing, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. Helps the channel immensely. And thank you guys so much for your support. Please be sure to subscribe right over here so you don't miss any of my future content. And if you're enjoying these Friday the 13th reviews, be sure to check out a few more right over here. And until next time, we'll see you guys for Jason X.